It is still the longest unprotected land border in the world, but it might be getting harder to cross from Canada into the U.S. In recent weeks, scores of Canadians say they've been turned back at border checkpoints, and that's causing some frustration in Canada. NPR's Joel Rose reports.
Bill McLevin and his wife were driving from Calgary, Alberta to Phoenix, Arizona, where his brother-in-law owns a condo, earlier this month. A trip McLevin says he's made many times before.
I have flown down a couple of times, and I have gone through Montana, Sweetgrass, border crossing 3 or 4 times.
Did you ever have any trouble before?
I've never ever had a trouble before. But they've never asked me that question. Have you a criminal record?
Bill McLevin is 66 years old. Back when he was 20, he was arrested for selling a psychedelic drug to undercover police. McLevin insists he was not a drug dealer, that the incident was a one-time mistake. He served 6 months in prison. He says the Canadian government pardoned him more than 30 years ago. But under U.S. law, that doesn't matter. U.S. Customs and Border Protection wouldn't let McLevin into the country and put him in their database.
They treated me like I was a criminal right off the bat again, like it just happened yesterday. They mugshot me. They fingerprinted me. It was embarrassing.
Yeah, definitely things have changed on the northern border.
Heather Siegel is an immigration lawyer in Toronto. Until recently, she says, it was easy for Canadians to visit the U.S. Most don't need a visa. But immigration lawyers on both sides of the nearly 4,000-mile border say officers from Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, have gotten more aggressive in their questioning of Canadian citizens and about who they're letting into the country since President Trump took office.
Denying people, erring on the side of denial, slowing people down and preventing people from getting into the United States with this notion by CBP that this is how they're supposed to be behaving right now.
A Customs and Border Protection spokeswoman declined to comment on individual cases. But she also notes that officers have broad discretion in deciding who gets to cross the border. Thomas Winkowski is a former acting commissioner of CBP.
When you have an incident that happens, people start saying, hey, this is a result of the administration, when in fact it really isn't. It's business as usual.
Stories about Canadians being turned back at the border have gotten lots of attention. There's the one about the church volunteers from Ontario who were stopped on their way to New Jersey to assist victims who still need help rebuilding their homes after Hurricane Sandy. The Canadian nurses who were briefly told they had the wrong visas to work at a hospital in Detroit. And perhaps most baffling, the story of Manpreet Kunar.
Honestly, I wanted to just go to Vermont with my girlfriends for like a day getaway.
Kunar lives in Montreal. She says she was stopped at the U.S. border this month and told she had to have a visa to enter. Kunar says she's a law-abiding citizen of Canada, so there's no apparent reason she should need one to visit as a tourist. Here's Kunar speaking to Canadian TV.
I've asked the officers, why is this happening to me? And nobody can give me an answer. They tell me that they're not entitled to tell me.
Some aren't taking any chances, including the Girl Guides, Canada's equivalent of the Girl Scouts. They've canceled field trips to the U.S. So have several school districts, including Toronto's, because school officials say they don't want to deal with students being rejected at the border. Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly was asked about those concerns at a press conference this week in Detroit.
If they're in Canada legally and they have the proper paperwork, they don't have to worry about anything. I don't get it, but it's their business, and if they feel that way, that's their loss, I guess.
Customs and Border Protection says a tiny percentage of Canadians are rejected at the border. Out of 13 million visitors since October, CBP says fewer than 7,000 were turned back. But immigration lawyer Heather Siegel says that's partly because fewer Canadians are visiting the U.S. in the first place.
It's so difficult to navigate the entrance that it creates a chilling effect.
Siegel says the reception at the northern border is chillier than it's been in decades, whether that's intended or not. Joel Rose, NPR News.